What is up guys, it is Unsalted Butter. This is earlier than I thought. I thought my next video would not be coming out until like next week after school has started, but I've been thinking about making this video for a little bit and I finally finished all the ideas that I put into this video that I need to make it. So this is going to be the best ways from my personal experience on how to learn a language, because for the past year or so, well, I wouldn't say exactly a year, it's been a year, but I haven't been intensively studying Spanish until this past year. And all of these tips that I'm going to say in this video, hopefully it will help some of you if you're wanting to learn a language, because it has definitely helped me with my Spanish, porque yo puedo hablar español sin pensar, pues hasta pronto. Claro que sí, no sé todo idioma. Let's get into the first one of the best way to learn a language. Tip number one is being consistent. Now, I think it's very important to have a strict schedule if you're learning a language, and if you have the time available. I feel like learning a language is only possible if you have an allotted time for it, because it will take a lot of time. A lot of time is definitely needed in learning a language, and you must have a schedule and you need to set goals, because this will motivate you to be like, I'll practice 20 minutes a day, I'll do, and then maybe step it up once you can work out a better schedule. And this has definitely helped me. I have slacked off some, but I like to set goals for myself that I want to complete in a day, and I end up learning new stuff every day just from having a set schedule. Tip number two is surround yourself in that language the most that you want to. You need to immerse yourself completely in it, such as music, watching TV shows or movies in that language. For example, when I first thought of the idea to do this in my own language learning, I would watch, well, for Spanish they're called telenovelas, which in America we have soap operas. It's the same thing, it's just dramatic TV shows. This is important to watch, like find like soap operas in your language if they have them in those countries, because in these like soap operas the actors are very expressive and you can hear them, well, a lot of times you can hear them more clearly than other stuff, and I think it's really like you can start to pick up on stuff, because I noticed that I do, which obviously they're really dramatic, so they can sometimes start rambling on and it's really hard to explain if you're not used to the language. But the more that you have, and especially with music, the more that you have it flowing in your mind every day, the more it won't sound unnatural. So when you hear it, it'll, like, you want it to be as natural as possible. Tip number three kind of goes hand in hand with number two. This is something that I've done as well. Change your phone setting to the language that you are studying, because especially if you're on your phone a lot during the day, it is important that you get familiarized with new words every day. And the way to do this, if you're not aware, you can go to your settings, type in the search bar at the top, type in languages, and then you can find your language and move it to the top above English, and then it'll set your phone to that language. And also sometimes I will be wanting to just like if I download an app, I want to hurry, get through it, and I don't understand everything, and I'm like, I just want to do this really quickly without having to think about it. I will sometimes change it back to English, and sometimes I'll forget that I did, and then I'll just go a little bit back and forth. I think that's actually important, because I accidentally did it, and I've learned that it makes me more familiar with the words, and it makes the English and Spanish just as natural, because I've noticed whenever I switch it back and forth and I see notifications pop up in English or pop up in Spanish, I don't really see a difference. I mean, obviously I see a physical difference, but my brain just comprehends it immediately without thinking about it, and I think that's really important. Tip number four is read books and use apps. Now, I have one thing to say about apps. There are a lot of apps that claim to be language learning apps, and they're not that useful. Now, I think one of the best free language learning apps is Duolingo. I know it's like a meme or whatever. A lot of people say it doesn't work. Now, I will admit it's not going to teach you an entire language, but it is very useful to learn about specific things and learn more of the grammar rules and stuff. Now, with the books, I actually do have this book. It's a Spanish for Dummies. This is the 4-in-1. It has all of the book. I know this is backwards because I have my phone facing towards me, so, but this is very useful. And I know this whole author that does like the For Dummies thing, if that author has a book like that, in your target language, I think you should definitely check that out, because this one has helped me a lot with learning conversational things for specific scenarios. Like there's an entire section for Spanish at work, whatever, like different jobs, stuff you need, Spanish at the market. It's really important, like phone calls, everything, every situation that you go through on your day-to-day life, it covers everything. Tip number 5 is find natives to speak with. And the reason that I keep looking up and down is because I originally typed out all these notes on my phone, but I record on my phone, so I had to copy everything on paper so I would remember everything that I typed out. But I think it's important to find native people. Whether if you're still in school, you may have friends that speak your target language and are native to that, or there's just some people that you don't know. And I think it's important if you can connect with them and get tips from someone who is from the source of that language. Or at your job, there could be native people in your target language that could help you out with things. If neither of those are applicable to you, you could also find online groups of specific languages, groups of people, whether it's natives or people that are also like you wanting to learn the language. Maybe some of them are more advanced than you are, but whichever you choose to do, I think all of them will be helpful to you. Number 6 is travel if it is available to you. Now, me trying to learn Spanish, the only Spanish-speaking country I've been to is Mexico, and I haven't been to Mexico since 2017, but I can assure you that going to the place itself could definitely motivate you to want to learn that language more, because you'll be surrounded by the culture, and it's really interesting to learn more about someone's culture and just all of that. Number 7 is a really important one. You have to train your brain to think in that language, and what I mean is stop translating and learn the word for what it is. And this may sound confusing, but I mean, if you're learning so I'm going to keep using Spanish as an example just because this is the only other language that I know somewhat about. So if you're going to learn the word house in Spanish, casa, you see it, like, don't be like casa equals house. You should pair up. I think flashcards are also really important. This is just a honorable mention, flashcards, because this will help with this. You have flashcards, it's like picture of a apple and under it says manzana, so you don't correlate that picture of the apple with the word apple, you correlate it with manzana, so you get familiarized with that word for what it is instead of for what it is in your native language, which is probably English for everyone watching this. Something that I also do is if I see a word in Spanish that I do not understand, I look up this word, whatever the word is, and then I look up like definición, so I get the definition written in Spanish, so I can read it in Spanish instead of reading it in English, because that helps me learn the word more for what it is in Spanish than the English translation of the definition of it. Number 8 is you have to understand, you must change the way you think, because most languages all have a different thinking pattern. Common example of this that most people may know between English and Spanish. English, we use adjectives before the word, whereas Spanish, they use it after. So if you're going to say the red t-shirt, English, you say the red t-shirt. Use the adjective to describe the word before you say it, whereas Spanish, you would say la camiseta roja, whereas you explained that la camiseta es roja. Number 9 is focus on studying more conversational things over grammar patterns. I know grammar patterns are very important, and I spend a lot of time doing them. That's mainly what they focus on in school, teaching you. But I think what's really important is learning conversational things, because what you get taught in, say, school, or if you just teach yourself certain grammar stuff, like grammar rules, how to conjugate verbs, those are all important. But you have to remember that most people in their native language, I know for a long time, when I'm younger, I don't know all these grammar patterns. Like, I don't know rules about my native language. I'm just speaking because I know the word. And that's how most people are. A lot of people, even when they get into their teen years, their adulthood, some people aren't aware of every little grammar rule, whereas you're over here trying to learn all these little grammar patterns instead of focusing on conversational things, because once you get into the real world, those grammar patterns and conjugation will be useful, But if you don't know like specific lingo, I should say, or like street level knowledge of that language, then you might have a hard time. Number 10 is kind of two different things. Start speaking as soon as you can, and as well as don't be embarrassed to speak around natives and just other people that speak that language, because I can assure you they may, if they're friends with you, they may end up laughing if you make mistakes, but let's be honest, we all would with our friends. But deep down, they're actually really glad that you are taking your time to learn their language and connect with them on a more personal level, to learn about the way that they process things, because it's very different from what you're used to in English, and also just learning more about their culture. The last tip I have is you should learn sentence chunks. And what I mean by this is, instead of learning individual words, you should learn individual words so you know how to say them, but as well as learning sentences in chunks so you can use them in those chunks instead of having to remember each word. An example, I've learned that I'm going to in Spanish is voy a, so I don't think about saying like, okay, so I am going is voy or me voy, whatever, and then to is I just think of voy a, so like I'm getting the Spanish accent in my English. The way I said like right there was a little bit influenced. So like if I think about I'm going to the library, voy a la biblioteca, sorry. I don't know if I'm getting my point across correctly, but I think it's very important to learn these so you can basically, once you learn the chunks, you can take that chunk that you've remembered and just change the words around it and just put it in the middle of stuff so you can. And then once you see it, especially in reading, once you see that little sentence chunk, you'd be like, oh, I know what that means. I don't have to look at each individual word to understand it. I can just look at the individual thing and immediately know it. So these are my 11 tips on how the best way to learn a language, in my opinion, from my personal experience in my Spanish journey. If you like this type of content and want to see more language videos, let me know in the comment section below. If you have ideas about language videos, let me know as well. And I may end up making some videos on my Spanish language learning journey. I used to think about, before I started uploading on this channel again, or thinking about uploading on this channel again, I used to think about making videos on my Spanish journey along the way, like a year learning Spanish, whatever. And if y'all are interested in that, I may start doing that. Other stuff with languages. There's something about me. I'm really interested in languages. I would love to learn many other languages, and I just picked Spanish first because it's the most useful for me living in the United States, considering there are more Spanish speakers in the United States than Spain. So yeah, I really hope this video was helpful to those who needed to see it. And if you liked the video, make sure to thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. And I will see you all in the next video.